I bought a Honda. 2 of them. Let me explain. So what should you do when you already have more projects than you know what to do with? That's right, buy 2 broken motorcycles, even though you don't know anything about them. I'm glad we agree. But in all seriousness, what's with the bikes? As long as I can remember, I've been interested in cars. I think it's something that's innate in me. I can't recall a time growing up when I wasn't obsessively collecting models or books or dreaming about getting my first project. So naturally, I've spent the last 10 years getting into the hobby and the business of classic cars, and classic Alfa Romeos in particular. But this motorcycle thing has been a slower burn, heating up with each successive year, with each piece of culture in the motorcycle canon gradually finding its way to me. Shows like Long Way Around had a huge impact. I think I've seen it 10 times over by this point. And of course, it influenced me in other ways. Books like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance and Shop Class as Soulcraft have been some of my favourite reads, but I have never, until now, owned a motorcycle. It's become an itch that needs scratching. I blame James May, mostly. Growing up, I was, and still am, a huge fan of the Clarkson, Hammond and May Top Gear on the BBC. That's not an original story, I know. I'm sure many of you watching have good memories about that show, just like I do. But there's this episode in season 12 where the trio are sent to Vietnam, and unable to purchase cars within their meager budgets, they find themselves on 2 wheels. Richard buys a Russian 2-stroke Minsk. Jeremy buys a massively inappropriate Vespa.
I've bought this, which is,
and he's not particularly interested in the whole ordeal.
It is.
Let go now, it'll just fall over.
Nope, it's got a thing called a stand.
You really don't know anything about bikes, do you? I mean, really
Nothing.
And James buys, in his words, not mine, the greatest motorcycle in history.
The greatest motorcycle in history.
And in that moment, all those years ago, a seed of obsession was planted. There was something so honest and sweet about that little bike. He did another Super Cub segment for his show Cars of the People, where he races a Daihatsu K car across Tokyo delivering noodles to the Honda office, and it just looked like so much damn fun. I wanted in on the world of motorcycles, and I wanted in on a Honda Super Cub. I'm going to have to side with James May on this one. The Honda Super Cub is the greatest motorcycle ever made, and not just because Honda has built over 100 million of them. I find the whole story of this bike fascinating, from its creator and the team of people who designed it, and the incredible creativity they needed to bring something totally new into the world. It's the way it changed the image of motorcycling forever, through some of the greatest advertising campaigns ever. The Super Cub was such an iconic part of the culture that the Beach Boys even wrote a song about it. People often forget that the image of motorcycles in the 1950s and 60s was rough. Full of outlaw motorcycle clubs in the United States, and tough guys like Marlon Brando and rebels like James Dean, being the association for most people. Britain had the cafe races and the mods and rockers. The Super Cub had to carve a path through all of that to find its place in the mind of the public. It wasn't just the marketing that was a challenge. The Super Cub was designed to be unlike any other motorcycle ever made. Soichiro Honda often told his designers to create things that could fit in the hand. Josaburo Kimura, a lead on the project, distilled that into some core tenets. A radical for its time, small displacement 4-stroke 50cc engine, a chassis and bodywork design that was easy for anyone to get on and ride, a new transmission system that didn't need a clutch lever to operate it, and an aesthetic design that was friendly, fresh, and timeless. And within such tight technical constraints, Honda was able to create a bike that worked for the commuting salaryman of Tokyo, farmers of the countryside in Vietnam, college students of California, this lady, these two, and people like me, people who've never owned a motorcycle before. I set out to find a Super Cub about 6 years ago, but here in South Africa where I live, they are rare. They've made over 100 million of these, but apparently almost none of them made their way over here. I would occasionally come across online ads for these bikes, but often they'd sell before I could even give the guy a call. Once I found an online ad for one of these bikes, but the guy wanted me to show up in person and pay cash for it, and he wouldn't deal with a shipping company or anything. I even found one in the back of a local workshop, but it wasn't for sale, even though it hadn't moved in years. I found a few 70s and 90s too, but it was the 50, the original, that I was after. All 4.5 horsepower of it. So I started looking for something else. So that's how I ended up with this. This is a CD200 Roadmaster, which is a South Africa and Pakistan only model, I think. I think some of them ended up in like the UAE and stuff as well. Essentially, it is a 200cc parallel twin 6-volt bike. I think these ended up in the UK as well, but they were called Benleys and they were 12 volts instead of 6. I thought it looked pretty cool, and it was cheap. And it's a delivery bike, so probably a good starter bike. I found one in Durban via an online ad and brought it home. Now, this bike, unlike the Cub, does start and run. And I'm not making that up, I promise it does work. I do not know which is the correct position for this. I think we have fuel. This is hard work, and none of you are going to believe me now. You're going to say, oh Jethro, you've bought another thing that doesn't run. Yeah. See, it does run. I told you it would run, and it does. Flawlessly. This thing smokes like a two-stroke, and I don't really know what's going on with it. It's like it's got broken piston rings or even broken pistons or something like that. But at least it starts and runs and all the lights work, so it's a pretty good place to start. But I'm going to see if I can ride it a little bit and get it to shift gears. That's gross. It's bad. It's really bad. But it's good, because it runs. This bike is tired all round. It smokes like crazy, and it drops oil out the exhaust. It's going to need a complete teardown and rebuild, and maybe with some tasteful modifications. However, only a few weeks after I bought this bike, I got word of a C50 Super Cub, just a few minutes away from home in the garage of a local car collector. I gave him a call and he agreed to sell me the Cub. Years of searching had come to an end. It's a second series Cub from around 1966 to 1969. The first of the series to have an overhead cam engine, I think. I don't really know what I'm looking at with these engines. They're a far cry from the Alfa twin cams that I'm used to. The thing is, it's in horrible condition too. When he sold me the bike, he said, oh, it's been off the road for maybe 10 years or so. And then I had a look at the license disc, and it's been off the road since 1989. These bikes are known for their legendary reliability. I mean, Charlie Borman threw one of these off a 4-story building and it still ran.
See if we can get it moving.
So whoever owned this bike in the past must have been an absolute wrecker, because it won't even start. The engine isn't seized, but the kickstarter is stripped. The chain guard was worn through, so it's been running without any attention or service for a long time. The wiring is all hacked up, so I can't even jump start it. However, if I put it in gear and push it around, the rear wheel locks up. So maybe the engine, transmission and clutch aren't in such a bad shape after all, but I think I'll have to strip everything down to find out. So what to do with these two deal of the century, totally good idea, not money pit projects? Well, I'm going to start here with the CD200, mostly because it's just less broken than the Cub. And I have an entire bike in spares in storage, as well as I've been collecting some engine spares for it for quite a long time now. So it's just a more simple project than the Cub. It should be smooth sailing. I know I just jinxed it by saying that, but hey, it wouldn't be my channel if things didn't snowball wildly out of their original scope. The 200 should be a good first bike project. I understand that it has an engine, and in that engine there's a crank, and pistons, and a cam, and timing chains, and gears. But that's all academic. I don't actually know what's going on inside that engine. So I'm starting this project as a novice, both of these projects. And I'm going to learn on the job, and bring you guys along with me. The Super Cub will be a bigger project. It's going to need a lot more in terms of parts and work and research. I don't have any spare parts for this bike, and I'm not really sure where to start looking. Like, where can I get new leg guards for this specific year and model? I've got some homework to do before I start pulling things apart. As I've learned, things tear apart so easily, but they don't tear back together very easily at all. There's this line in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance that I've been thinking about a lot lately. On a cycle, the frame is gone. You're completely in contact with it all. You're in the scene, not just watching it anymore. And the sense of presence is overwhelming. That concrete whizzing by 5 inches below your foot is the real thing. The same stuff you walk on. It's right there. So blurred you can't focus on it, yet you can put your foot down and touch it any time. And the whole thing, the whole experience, is never removed from immediate consciousness. I think that's what I loved about my Lotus. No windshield, no windows, no doors, no frame. I've seen some amazing things through that frame, but I'm excited to experience being in the scenery. Have you ever walked down a street that you've only ever driven down before, and suddenly it feels brand new and you see a whole bunch of things you've never seen? I think that's what it means by having the frame removed. I think it's going to be a good while before I can do another long road trip in an Alfa. Not just because of the big bad thing that you're probably tired of hearing about, but because I have a lot of work to get on with before I can make that happen. Work on the cars and on this channel. But until then, I have these motorcycles, and maybe they can make the places that I already know, the roads I drive every day, my little hometown, maybe they can make them feel like somewhere new. Like some place I'm seeing for the first time, because for the first time, I'll be seeing them without the frame. So that's why, even though I have more projects than I know what to do with, I bought 2 old Hondas, and I don't even know anything about them. But I'm excited. You've been watching The Honda Super Cub is the greatest motorcycle ever made, and everyone's wrong except me and James May. And I just want to say thanks for watching. I know it's a bit odd, me doing Honda content and not Alfa Romeo content. There's going to be a return to normality next week with the return to Alfa Romeo videos. I've got quite a lot of work to do on my GTV, and you might have noticed I have another white Duetto Spider in the workshop that needs a lot of work, so stick around for that. I just want to say thanks again to everyone who signed up on Patreon. I'm trying to build that platform out at the moment, so from now on I'll be putting all the videos up there as well, so you can watch them ad-free. And I'll be backdating the catalog as well with like the greatest hits from the channel so far. If you sign up there, you can watch all the videos ad-free, and I'll be doing some bonus episodes up there as well. And I want to say welcome to the new patrons. Peter Jones, Rick Denbruda, Nicola, Malcolm Scott, Phil Dresser, Kovac Sandor, Paul Doherty, Robert Yu, and Andy Boulet. Thanks so much for the support, guys. It really makes a world of difference.